Well, hello and welcome to one of our last Zoom sessions in this course, 250 Real Ear Measurement. We'll hold another Zoom session next week, Tuesday, this coming, mainly to be a review of things. I'm going to the Netherlands. Kim and I are heading to the Netherlands as of April 20 to April 30. Just so everybody knows that. So at any rate, what we're going to do today is continue in Unit 7. And last week, you will recall, we went over some article, some Sanders article. Oh, yeah, and this past Tuesday, I tried to record Zoom session for 110 acoustics, Zoom session for 120 anatomy, and I had no audio. There's something screwy with the audio, and it looked like my mic was working and video was working. I recorded an hour-long acoustics Zoom session, and one student texted me or chatted later and said, I can't hear you. So I went and looked on, because after I uploaded it to a YouTube and put it on Canvas, and I'm listening, and yep, sure enough, after 10 seconds, my voice is gone. What? So I did it again. Another 45 minutes to an hour, same topic. Listen to it afterwards, same thing. After 10 seconds, no more audio. What? So I'm calling IT in Missouri at Ozarks, and they can't figure it out. I'm talking to some IT people here on my end. They can't figure it out. It turns out it's probably an updated Zoom that automatically updated, and because of that I had to manually turn on audio somehow. I don't know. It's now working. It seems to. I'm paranoid though. I'm constantly looking on the screen to see if I can look at this little microphone on the bottom left of my screen. As long as I can see a little green thing moving up and down, I know that I'm recording, but yikes, what a drag. Anyway, so anyway, last week we went over an article by Sanders, Mueller, Studi, I don't know, 2015 hearing review article, and it was called Many Manufacturers Fail Now to Real Ear Measurement Fittings. And what we talked about last week was the fact that many of the softwares by Phonak, God knows who they are. This was a study that looked at 5 different manufacturers, and they all had proprietary fitting methods, right? And their proprietary fitting methods all roll off the highs. But then, to make matters even worse, when they implement NAL 2, they all implement NAL 2 differently. So NAL 2 is not exactly the same on Siemens as it is on Phonak, as it is on, you can't assume that. And I wondered if that was even possible, but I ran into Gus Mueller, Dr. Gus Mueller, who is one of the authors of that article. And I asked him personally, because we both spoke together at a conference. It was a week before the Missouri Hearing Society conference, and it was called Western Canadian Symposium. And I asked him, I said, how is it possible that they can actually choose to change now? Don't they have to, if they buy the copyright, don't they have to implement the real thing? And he said, no, there's no reason there's nothing written in any contract that says they have to. They're paying to use the name. I said, well, why would they change? And he said, that's so that it might make it easier to hit NAL 2 targets on their fitting software. And so then audiologists and HISs would start thinking, yeah, I want to fit with hearing aid manufacturer X, because when I can hit their NAL 2, their hearing aids allow me to hit NAL 2 better than hearing aid manufacturer Y does. I can't seem to hit NAL 2 targets very well with manufacturer Y, but I can with manufacturer X. So I'm going to use manufacturer X's hearing aids because they can hit NAL targets better. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, what manufacturer X did was manipulate the NAL 2 targets so that you could hit them better. Anyway, the point of the whole session last week was to say that the only place that you can truly trust that a fitting method is the fitting method as it was intended to be, the only place that can be found is on the real ear measurement equipment. So manufacturers may have NAL2 and DSL5 and NAL1 on their software, but so does all real ear measurement equipment. Okay? And the trick to know is it's only on the real ear equipment that you can truly trust that NAL2 is the unadulterated NAL2 and that NAL1 is the unadulterated NAL1. I mean, that's the only place you can truly trust that. And not many people know this. I'd venture to say 80% of audiologists with their AUD don't really know this, okay? And this is the point of that article, and that article is famously important to read, okay? So what you have in your notes on that article, and then the article itself, which may or may not be uploaded onto Canvas. I'm going to look after this Zoom session to be sure that it is, because I think it's a very important and seminal article. And we should all make sure to read that article carefully. And if anybody has any forgets about it, look at last week's April 2nd Zoom session again, and look at those various graphs that talk about the proprietary fitting methods and then the implementation of NAL2 by 5 different hearing aid manufacturers. And some stay closer to the true deal than other ones do. Some veer way off the path. So anyway, so that's kind of like a preamble, sort of like a summary of what we did last week, and basically brings us to where we are today, because at the end of the April 2nd Zoom session, I said what we were going to look at today was some case studies that I had students at Conestoga College in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. I had students at Conestoga College run various hearing aids according to the manufacturer's fitting software, and then run them on real ear and find out how close they really were to targets. Let's look at how similar or how different they all were. So why don't we, without any further ado, I'll share screen and we'll take a look here. So we'll look first at our PowerPoint here. And we'll move on down, move on down, move on down, move on down. We will get to, no, let's not move on down, let's move on up. Okay, up to slide 15. That's where you really want to be. Okay, boom, slide 15 in your PowerPoints. Software walks, or talks, I should say, real ear measurement walks. Manufacturer software prediction versus reality. Now here's something we should also know as a little bit of a term or whatever, okay? I'll stop sharing for just a second here. Real ear verifies your hearing aid fitting. So you'll always see that word verification, and it comes from the word verily, the truth. Verily, verily, I say unto thee, okay? In truth, in vino veritas, in wine there is truth, okay? Verification or proof that the hearing aid is doing what the manufacturer's software said it should do. That's done by real ear measurement, okay? When people talk about hearing aid satisfaction scales, like you may learn in other courses, the COSI, Client-Oriented Scale of Improvement, or the AFAB, Abbreviated Profile of Hearing Aid Benefit, or the SADL, Satisfaction with Amplification in Daily Living, or the HHIA, Hearing Handicap Inventory for Adults. These are questionnaires, scales of satisfaction with the hearing aids. How do you like the hearing aids, okay? Now, those kinds of issues are called validation tools. Those deal more subjectively with the heart. So verification is objective. Did you hit the targets? Did you hit the targets with the fitting method? Okay, that's done by real ear. Validation of a hearing aid fitting is done by subjective satisfaction scales. And the ones the 4 that I've mentioned are the most popular. And of those 4, the most popular one is the COSI, Client-Oriented Scale of Improvement. I'll think about it, and over the next couple weeks, I may just end up doing a Zoom session on those 4, just FYI, because it may cap or complete a course like this in real ear measurement. It's food for thought. I don't know. Then again, you may have heard about them from other instructors. I do not know. Why don't you send me an email afterwards and let me know whether you've had any of these satisfaction scales covered in any of your other courses. If we haven't, then I would think it's high time we did. So I'll wait to hear from you, okay, regarding that. Back to sharing screen. So here we have, I'll move that green box out of the way here because that's always, all right. Software talks, real ear measurement walks. Manufacturer software prediction versus reality. So when you're looking on the left, you're looking at 3 different outputs, okay, on today's real ear, where we look at real ear aided response, in situ, hearing aid in place, REAR. And read what it says in white here. Outputs as predicted on the software. And it could be from now 1, could be from DSL 5, who cares, doesn't matter, okay? The hearing loss is shown on the right. Now look at that precipitous rise, okay? The hearing is normal in the low frequencies. Remember, this is all in dB/SPL. Normal in the lows, even better than normal over here. And then it rises to a precipitous hearing loss in the highs. Okay, so now hearing loss, of course, and hearing aids are in the same language, as is done with today's real ear. So here's what the software on the left said would happen with 3 different inputs: a soft input, an average input, and a loud input. And you can see the targets are the solid lines that I'm hitting with my cursor here. Those would be the targets. And the target for an average input, and the target for a soft input, the target output for a soft input, the target output for an average input, the target output for a loud input. And you can see where all things end here. So this must be now 1. It's got to be, because look at how the targets end in thin air. Okay, this person's loss goes way worse, but remember, now 1 is the fitting method where the targets end in thin air, especially where the hearing loss is the worst. Remember, now 1 was the one in cahoots with the cochlear dead regions concept. Anyway, the picture painted on the left is that the hearing aid is going to do pretty well. So here's the thin lines that are indicating what the hearing aid will likely do. This hearing loss was banked into the software, and now 1 was chosen as the fitting method, and the clinician hit enter, and the hearing aid was programmed to hit the targets, and this is what the software said you'd get. Now, over to real ear. And when you're looking at real ear, look at the targets again. Now I'm looking at, these got to be DSL-4 targets. They have to be. You know why I'm saying that? Because the targets are in the middle. They're in the middle of the dynamic range. And no other fitting method does that, right? So perhaps this was with DSL-4. I don't know why the targets are cut off here. Doesn't matter. The point is this. Look what real ear like the software predicted, and look what real ear found. And these are the targets for average inputs. So look at the middle one here. This is what the software said you'd get. And look what you found in real ear. Yeah, you're fairly close to target here. Well, the person has no hearing loss. So if they have no hearing loss and average inputs are about 50, 60 or whatever, yeah, no problem, okay? There's no gain there at all. But look at what they want over here, the fitting method, and look what the hearing aid's actually delivering. So you're not 4 dB shy, you're not 14 decibel shy, you are 40. Because look here, the target is at 110, an output at 110, and you're at a little more than 70. You're at about 80, a little shy of 80. So it's like, whoa. Okay, not that you'd want to hit this target, because you really wouldn't want to hit that target. It would be too much target, okay? The guy would probably wind up and punch you in the side of the head. But the point is, right, wrong, or indifferently, what you're getting with Real Ear is different from what the software said you'd get. All right? That's the point. It's not that you have to sit there hitting the target because the fitting method said you had to hit the target. Okay? You as a clinician may have a new hearing aid user, and you want to set the software to look at an inexperienced wearer. And you're going to deliberately underfit. Okay? Which is fine. That's what you want to do at first. You wade into the shallow end of the pool. That's nothing wrong with that. But Real Ear shows you what you're actually getting. So you can always put that in the person's file and say, I deliberately underfit. When the person comes back in a couple of weeks, I'll probably increase things to better match the targets. Okay? The point is, you can't just sit there blindly trusting the manufacturer fitting software. That's the main issue here. So here's student 1 at Conestoga College. And I first had the person look at Now R, just a good old-fashioned fitting method from way back. You know, the precursor to Now 1. Now R. On the RM500, which was an old version of Real Ear system. No longer, you can't even buy it anymore. It's vintage, it's ancient, it's retro. And the stimulus was sweep tones. All right, let's look at old Real Ear here, just for the sheer heck of it. You've got Real Ear unaided response, and the pink here, Real Ear aided response. Now what they did was they banked in a mild to moderate loss into the software, chose Now R as the fitting method, hit the enter button to automatically program the hearing aid to fit the Now R targets for the sloping hearing loss. And this is the Real Ear aided response you got when you did that. Well, in old Real Ear, remember this is old Real Ear, REAR minus REUR equals Real Ear insertion gain. Now here's the target. The light dotted line is the target, the Now R target. So you can see that your Real Ear insertion gain was below target. So the clinician or the student had to increase the REAR so that the yellow REAR minus the blue REUR now better approximates the target. The Real Ear aided response was adjusted. And you can see that the input here was 65. Okay? Unaided input was 65. Aided input was 65. Remember, in old Real Ear, it was very important to make sure that the input level for REUR and the input level for REAR were, of course, were kept identical. Okay? Because you've got Real Ear unaided response, which is the open unaided ear canal resonance. Then you're holding the tube in carefully. You're putting the hearing aid in place on top of that tube, and with the very same stimulus coming out of the speakers, measuring the aided response. Of course, we know what Seewald thought of that. Richard Seewald thought, well, if you plugged up the ear during the hearing test, you destroyed the REUR in the first place. So why are you using that at all in your hearing aid test? But that's a question we've already talked about. So here's student number 1, again, but now she's looking at DSL-4. You can tell this was a while ago. DSL-5 wasn't out, okay? So here's the same hearing loss in dB-SPL. Now she's using today's Real Ear on an old system. Speech mapping. This is minimal audible pressure on the bottom, which, of course, as we all know, is 0 dB-HL. Here's the person's hearing loss in blue. The asterisks are frequency-specific loudness discomfort levels. And the targets being halfway in the listener's dynamic range. You know this has got to be DSL-4. So, program the hearing aid according to DSL-4. Same hearing loss as was shown previously. Only the hearing loss here, you can't see it, of course. This is yesterday's real ear. This is today's. So at least today's real ear, you can see the hearing levels. Here goes. First fit, according to the manufacturer's fitting software, pink. And what was the input? Average inputs. And look at how far shy you are of the targets, of the plus signs. The plus signs are the DSL-4 targets. So she had to reprogram the hearing aid herself to make the outputs better match the targets. So look at the difference between what the software said, because remember, on the software, this was made to look like it was going to be beautiful. On the software, remember that. We're not showing a picture of that, but remember, on the manufacturer's software, the picture it painted was that the output of the hearing aid was matching DSL-4 targets. In reality, measuring DSL-4, the hearing aid on a real ear system, you were far shy of targets. Same with this picture here. This pink line here on the manufacturer's software obviously was made to look like it was good. And then the believing clinician would save those results and fit the client with the hearing aid, collect the money for the hearing aid, and send the person home. And there goes the person underfitted. Okay? Now, perhaps, again, as a new hearing aid wearer, you wouldn't mind the pink. An inexperienced hearing aid wearer, you wouldn't mind that. But the point of the matter is, on real ear equipment, the outputs look less usually than the rosy picture painted on the manufacturer's fitting software. Here's student number 2, and she also did Now R and DSL-4, and hers too. The purple, real ear unaided response. The light blue, what the hearing aid manufacturer said would match Now R targets for the particular hearing loss in question. Then she measured this on real ear and found out that this REAR minus REUR, you're sitting at this blue line, light bluish greenish line, far below targets, especially in the highs. So she had to readjust things in order so that this REAR minus real ear unaided response was indeed a better match to the targets, which are shown by the light blue dashed lines. Then she fit the same person, same hearing loss on DSL-4. And once again, the DSL-4 targets would be the light blue dots. And again, you know it's got to be DSL-4 because it's in the middle of the person's dynamic range, the targets are. Here's the person's hearing loss in yellow, normal hearing on the bottom, minimal audible pressure. So she had to readjust things in order to better match the targets. Here's a close-up of the very same thing here. Just looking at a close-up, student number 2, I should say same student, only now she's looking at Now 1. Instead of DSL-4, Now 1. So the person's hearing loss, loudness discomfort levels, average ones being chosen by by the real ear equipment. You can always remember you can choose average UCLs or you can measure UCLs. You can choose average real ear to coupler differences. You can measure real ear to coupler difference. Okay, you always can. And between you and me and the doorpost, I don't always find that measuring makes all that much of a difference. If the person's an average case and has an average ear canal, go ahead and choose average real ear to coupler difference. You know why? And I'll stop sharing here for just a sec. A bit of a digression here. Let's just just for fun. Okay? You know why it's not always so terribly important to measure everything? Because you're going to be tweaking the hearing aids anyway, due to the client's observations. It sounds a bit like this, or it sounds a bit like, you're going to be tweaking things a little bit. Look at things in broad strokes. Fitting methods are a great idea to get you in the ballpark. That's what they're for. It's not that you have to hit every little target, because maybe the tube in a little bit further or out a little bit further, or the person's a little further away from the speaker, or head turned a little bit, or any little minor adjustment that you've done to satisfy that client makes you already veer away from the exact outputs predicted by the software and given by the real ear measurement. Okay, so think a little bit in broad strokes that way. I caution people not to. We're not heart surgeons, okay? We're fitting hearing aids. Okay, so look at your feet, look at the ground, and make sure your feet are on the ground. Let's call the sky up there and the ground down here. Make it make sense. Okay, back to this. So now you're looking at this. Let's go look at this person here. So the original fitting, according to the manufacturer software, with the hearing loss here in black entered into the software. Now one chosen as the fitting method. The clinician hit enter on her keyboard. The hearing aid was automatically programmed to hit now one targets on the software. Took the person 1 meter away, sat the person in front of the real ear equipment, binked in the hearing loss in real ear, chose now one on real ear, measured what the output was, and guess what? Got the blue. And got the blues because you are below target for the low to mids, at target here. Okay, so she had to readjust things in order to hit the target. This fella here, student 3, he did DSL-4. Once again, here's the client's thresholds in DBSPL, normal hearing on the bottom. Very accurate student, this one. I mean, he labeled everything. Minimal audible pressure, number 1. SPLogram, number 2. Here's the guy's hearing loss. Number 3, loudness discomfort. Number 4, the DSL-4 targets. Number 5 was the first fit. And number 6 was the second fit that he had to do. Now notice this didn't even hit the highs here. Okay, even the refit didn't hit the highs. And people would say that, hey, they'd say, you know what, no matter what, Richard Seewald, we can't seem to hit your targets with the hearing aid, even if we turn its high frequency output to the max. We still can't make it hit the target. And Seewald would say, that's okay, just try and get as close as you can. Well, if nobody can hit the targets, eventually the targets are going to have to change. And they did, which is why DSL-5 emerged. And as you will recall, DSL-5 and NAL-2 are precariously similar. Not a lot of difference between the two of them. Basically, they've come together right now. They're pretty good. So we'll share screen here again and look. So, and here's another person, NAL-1. Okay, same fellow. Okay, instead of DSL-4, he's using NAL-1. Okay, and again, with the accurate labeling that he does, minimal audible pressure, the client's audiogram, the loudness discomfort levels, and here's the first fit. Now, I don't know if you can hear what's going on upstairs here, but the lady upstairs has these dogs, and they're in cages when she's gone. And I'm telling you, there's a bit, the natives are restless upstairs. And I can just hear boom, 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 boom. Hope it's not ruining your Zoom session. Unbelievable. Anyway, so look at number 5, pink noise, first fit. That pink noise was the stimulus, meant to imitate speech. Remember, pink noise is broadband noise that has more energy in the lows and less in the highs. It's meant to imitate the long-term average spectrum of speech, which also has more energy in the vowels and less in the highs, obviously. So at any rate, and number 6 was what he had to do to readjust things. But look at the amount of readjusting he had to do. Remember that this one here, number 5, on the software looked like it was hitting targets. And again, that can be for 2 reasons, okay? 1, a bold-faced lie, or 2, because maybe the manufacturer tweaked the NAL fitting method to make the hearing aids look like they were hitting the targets better. So and again, let's not blame the manufacturers too much. We got to be kind here, because the manufacturers are building the hearing aids and they're selling them to you, and then you're turning around and you're selling the hearing aid to the end user. And the manufacturer's job is to provide the software to make the adjustments to the hearing aids. And the manufacturer's job is not to do your hearing aid fitting. It's your job and my job to do the hearing aid fitting. But we're not doing our job if we blindly trust the manufacturer's versions of these fitting methods and blindly trust what it is that they say that is going to happen. And remember, people, out there in the real world, most HISs are not doing real ear. Okay? This is going to be the difference between an OTC grad and your typical IHS grad. I'm serious. Many of them don't know how to do real ear. They fit according to the manufacturer's fitting methods and software. And they'll say, oh, I don't get many returns. I make pretty decent sales. Yeah, but you're not really getting what you say you're getting. I guess that's you're kind of lost, actually. You're not really doing what you think you're doing. You're most likely underfitting. And you're most likely really not giving the person $6,000 worth of service, really. You think you are, but you're not, because you're not using any science. You're not proving anything. And always remember, it's not that you have to hit the manufacturer's targets. That's not the issue. The issue is, do you know really what your output is? You know, I mean, maybe you want to fit under the targets. Maybe you have reasons for doing what it is you're doing. But the fact of the matter is, you really don't know what it is you're doing if you're not doing real ear. That's the only objective reality you're going to get in hearing aid fittings. I mean, how does that sound only goes so far? And you can walk in those clinics and that's all you're hearing. Oh, okay, how does that sound? Oh, how does that sound? You're sitting there asking, how does that sound? Stop asking, how does that sound? Measure what it's doing and find so that you can see what the sound is. You know, when you get people who they're getting a new pair of hearing aids and they want the new pair of hearing aids to sound just like the old pair of hearing aids. And I watch these clinicians spinning their wheels, trying and moving this and moving that on the software. Okay, how does that sound? Why don't they do real ear on the old hearing aids and print up a print sheet of that and then program the new hearing aids to come as close to that as possible? Seems like so common sense to me. I just can't figure out how people would want to operate a clinic without real ear measurement. It's beyond me. And by the way, it's in best practices all over the place. Share screen. So here's another person, a fourth student, fitting with now R. Okay, here's the target with now R. Here's real ear unaided response. Here's the original real ear aided response according to the manufacturer's software. So look at where my cursor is. This minus this equals this. Okay, and you can see that if this here is about 85, okay, I'll go from 85 to here. Okay, so you got 85, and then go just right below that to here. Okay. Whoa. So you're just taking real ear aided minus real ear unaided, and you're going to get this. So the person had to boost things up so that this minus this equals this. That's the point. Here's student 4, SP-elogram with the old RM500 sweep tone stimulus. Broop, 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 using, what is it now? I think it's DSL4. It's got to be. You can just tell. Look where the targets are, halfway between or in the dynamic range. Okay? First fit, the brown. Refit, the blue. So really, even with the refit, you're only hitting target for the mid frequencies. But here's something to point out too. That's okay. Really, you got to think about Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Don't worry about 250 so much. Don't worry about 8,000 so much. Really, try to hit target for 500, 1,000, 2,000, and 4,000. Really, those 5, 1, 2, and 4. Those are really the frequencies that you really, of most importance, those are really the ones you want to hit concerning targets. Share screen. Here's another weird one. Now you got these black lines on here, okay? Again, the person's hearing loss. These are the DSL-4 targets. Loudness, discomfort levels at the top. And the first fit, the black, well below targets. The second fit, much better. Still shy here at 4,000, but whatever. These black lines, they came from the old real ear measurement system because it didn't have speech on it. It didn't have this carrot passage, or it didn't have this ISTS stimulus. They didn't do that in those days. Rather, the sound was like this, meant to imitate the stops and starts of speech. And those you'd want to hover around your what you were getting in your output. So this is what you would be getting in your output, and then you do that speech-like stimuli, and you'd want those to hover around. So it would show you what was happening with aided speech. Anyway, don't get too distracted by that. It's just that's what they call the soft dynamic stimulus. Anyway, here's a person, again, DSL, speech DSL. Now, both of them, same audiogram, speech mapping, first fit, required second fit. Now one, first fit, required second fit. Student number 6, now R, first fit, second fit. Once again, REAR minus REUR, you got this brown. Boosted things up to the blue. Now the blue minus the black, more beta. DSL-4, same thing. First fit, readjusted, second fit. Student number 7, same thing. It's just again and again and again. Now one DSL-4, and you can just tell this would be the first fit, that would be the second fit. This would be the first fit, this would be the second fit. Student 8, thresholds, target, underfit, the purples or the pink, you're underfitting the pink and purple dots. So here's that, this line here is this here, readjustment necessary. I don't know why that one's in there again, but you can kind of get the point. Look at this here, first fit, real ear aided, real ear unaided. Whoa. Okay, this is what you had to do to fix things. So the story just goes on and on and on. First fit, readjusted fit. And you say, old hearing aids, try a newer one. Okay, here's the audiogram. Here's the first fit. These are the now one targets. There's now one. Here's the now one targets. Here's what was required to match target. And here you go. Now one with Siemens. Used to be Siemens, now it's Signia. Okay? But here you go. Underfit. Now you're fit. So I think basically that can essentially end our Zoom session now. Okay, we've beaten this one to death. I just really wanted to show you case examples from person to person, just indicating that you are getting better training and you are taught to verify hearing aid fittings. Remember to send me an email as to whether you are getting validation techniques, questionnaires, okay? The subjective stuff. Is that being taught in any of your other courses? Do let me know, okay? And then we can try and squeeze a Zoom session on those as well. It's not the rocket science, but it may be a good finale to this course. Next week, Tuesday, this coming, which is going to be April 16, I'll hold another Zoom session. We'll make this one more like a review, okay? And then the week afterwards, the 23rd, I'm in the Netherlands. And the 30th, on a Tuesday, I return from the Netherlands. So those 2 weeks, I simply won't be here. Okay, I have to look in my good old date book here and figure out when exactly that OTC actually finishes. And when I look here, OTC finals are in the week of May 7 through 16. May 7 through May 16 is your finals. So our last, so basically, it looks like next week will likely be our very last Zoom session. I'm not sure if the 7th on May we can have one or not. Not sure. I'll check with Becca. Anyway, it's been a slice. I'll stop recording now.